On this day he entered the holy city of Jerusalem in triumph, and was proclaimed as King of Kings by those who spread their garments and branches of palm along his way. Let these branches be for a sign of his victory, and grant that we who bear them in his name may ever hail him as our King.
I want to tell you about my church. It is a loving and caring home away from home. I have very many family members that are very close to me. They are more than friends, they are very close as family. They treat me like family and they love me as family, and they are my family. They are closer to me in my heart. They help us learn more about God and what He does for us. I am loved and I love them.
It was a very difficult decision when Trinity decided to move into this much larger facility. They believed that this was what God was calling them to, but it seemed to be such a risk. But they were willing to take that risk. They were willing to step out in faith and move here, even though they weren't sure that they needed all the space, because it was just too much building, too much facility. What they discovered very shortly was that they were using every building and every room, and that the space allowed them to grow into who they wanted to be.
This church is special because of the people. The people in this church are amazing. Their willingness to support you, their willingness to give, their willingness to volunteer, and spirituality in this congregation, you can sense it when you walk in.
I grew up in a church home. My husband and I are from two different denominations. And when we came to Trinity, that was the perfect bond for us. It was the best of both worlds for us. It combined everything that both of us had growing up that we wanted. But where I grew up with a strong Sunday school program, my husband did not. Trinity offered that for us, and we can see God in our children. And I believe Trinity has everything to do with that. Well, one of my favorite things is that Jesus said, "Let the children come to me," and that's definitely something that Trinity embraces.
When you come to church on Sunday morning and see the children come up the aisle and head to their Sunday school class, the looks on their face tells you everything. And for them to grow and to feel safe here, we need to have a new building for the youth ministries.
Episcopalians love their sacred space. They love a place that is dedicated to worship, to the sacraments, to baptism and Eucharist. And so we have this beautiful dedicated space, large enough to meet the needs of our future. We also need to have that kind of dedicated space for other ministries to our children, to our youth. Space that is large enough and versatile enough to adapt and change in our changing ministries. And so that dedicated space is part of our Trinity Tomorrow master plan. You only get one chance to make a first impression. And that's true for people, we know that. But it's also true for the buildings of our church. When people first walk into these buildings, they see facilities that are old, that are beginning to deteriorate. And while we are warm and hospitable and welcoming, our buildings don't reflect that hospitality. Our buildings reflect age. When we have visitors come to our campus, we want them to see a facility that says, "We welcome you. We want you to feel at home. We want you to know that your children are safe, that they are going to be in a place that is going to be fun for them, and that they're going to relate beauty and church together." And that's not really possible right now. When I first came on this campus, when I walked into the atrium, I almost had a sense of claustrophobia because the first thing I felt was being enclosed, that it was dark. It did not seem to reflect who Trinity is, nor the community that we're living in. And I think that the atrium is a sign that we have outgrown that, and that we need space to care for the children and youth of our parish. An example is Trinity Kids Corner. Their building is not large enough for all the children they attract. And in some programs, they're using 3 different buildings to carry out the Trinity Kids Corner ministry. And we need to have them in a dedicated space where they're all together, where they're safe.
It is important for the children and the youth to have dedicated space. Right now, we juggle activities in the different locations throughout the church campus, and a lot of times I feel like the kids' activities may be constrained by the space restrictions we have or by the time restrictions we have due to the shared space. So it's a lot of extra effort to be able to have that fun, and it's not their space.
Youth are no different than anyone else. They want space that speaks to them, that says, this is yours. Be comfortable, feel at home, know that this is a place that you can go to and belong. That's why we're dedicating the first phase to the building that will house ministries for both children and youth.
The youth group here is special because they're welcoming anybody new that wants to join in, but could be better. The facility, that is. I mean, we're the next people to be occupying the church, and we need to feel just as much important as the adults and the toddlers and everybody else. It is important.
One of the things that we discovered when we moved into this facility was that it had been designed and built for a different congregation, for who they were. The Butler Hall, which we now use for fellowship, is right next to Kids Corner, the nursery, because when they originally were here, that was their worship space. And so nursery and worship space were adjacent. Now with this space, we're on the other side of the block from nursery. And we need to move the nursery closer to our worship space. We need to relocate it so that parents can take a short walk to where the nursery is and bring their kids into worship with them. That's part of what Phase 1 will do.
The children of Trinity are our future, and we have to make sure that they come here and feel like they're safe and happy and they can explore their faith so that they can go out and do God's work and show God's love by the way that they're loved.
So the big question really is, how do we do it? And the answer is, it's up to us. The answer is, we do it. Just as those people in the mid-1970s stepped out in faith to help create a church called Trinity, so God is asking those of us who are part of Trinity today to have the same courage, the same faith, the same generosity to making Trinity what she's supposed to be for the future. As we know, in every faith endeavor, there has to be prayer. We have to be seeking God's guidance, and we have to be willing to listen to what God is asking of us. Any real prayer begins with offering to God our thanks for all the things that are in our life. Prayer leads us into a spirituality of grace, being willing to take the step forward that may look and feel risky, but in God's hands will be a blessing and will bring abundance to this congregation in terms of our future. Gratitude is an awareness that all that I have comes from God. Knowing that I have more than I could ever imagine, and that God is a God of grace and abundance. And as we pray and become aware, we have to act out of thankfulness. We have to act out of that sense of gratitude because it fills us as we become more aware of God's graces in our life. This is an endeavor greater than ourselves, bigger than anything else we might ever join into. And my prayer is that you will join me in that vision. This isn't about building the perfect facility. It's about a vision of who we're supposed to be as a church. It's about looking at building a facility that meets the ministry needs of our congregation, not only in the present, but in the years to come.